Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's a month of service presentation of inherited property, clear title, deferred property taxes, and other probate concerns. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the a month of service collaboration. Also included is the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, and joining us today is Ms. Myra Hippolyte. Also, our presenting partners with the Earl Carl Institute, and joining us is Ms. Lisa Nelson. Also, on behalf of the Harris Central Appraisal District, we have Ms. Sarah Hatch, as well as the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office. We have Ms. Jamie Duong. But also included in the partnership is Lone Star Legal Aid, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, and the Houston Bar Association. Just an FYI for any attorneys that are joining us, any of our presentations where you see a course number, attorneys have the opportunity to take advantage of free CLE credits that are sponsored on behalf of our partner with the Houston Bar Association. So definitely take an opportunity to take advantage of that. But I want to welcome you to a month of service. And basically what a month of service is a collaboration of these 8 different organizations that come together each month to offer a variety of different workshops, information, presentations related to asset protection, asset building, community empowerment, and the maintaining of generational wealth. Since we pretty much service the same community and have a common goal, which is to provide information and resources to the community, we decided to come together and collaborate to create a larger impact, to create more of a larger audience. Oh, there is Miss Mabel. I'm sorry. Miss Mabel with the Harris Central Appraisal District is also joining us. But we decided to come together so that we can reach those areas of the Houston Harris County communities that don't normally have access to this kind of information, don't know where to go to receive assistance, resources, and other information. But this platform has allowed us, since we've been virtual, to reach even more people and even larger audience in the surrounding counties, as well as around the state of Texas as well. So know that the information that we do present on our presentations is relative to everyone throughout the state of Texas, not necessarily just where you are in the city of Houston. So we want to encourage you all to be as interactive as you'd like to be. Please feel free to ask whatever questions that you like. But because we are recording the session as well as broadcasting live on our social media platform at Amos Houston TX, we try to ask that you keep your questions to be as general as you possibly can, so that way we can protect your privacy as much as possible and not have any personal detail information getting out there for everyone to have access to. It's cracking Myra up that we see Miss Maple's ear into the phone.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can. Yes,
Great, I can barely hear you, so apologies for that.
Okay. I'll try to speak up and get even a little bit closer to the mic. How about that? Is everyone else hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, again, we want to thank you guys for joining us. We are going to go ahead and introduce our partners and our presenters, and we will move right on into our presentation. If you do have questions in the meantime, or if you're joining us on Facebook, please feel free to type your questions into the chat or in the comment section on Facebook, and we will definitely make sure that your questions or concerns are addressed. So with that being said, Ms. Myra, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Ms. Nia. And I'm sorry, everyone, for laughing. I'm the kid that would be the first one to laugh at everything and get in trouble. So just to let you know. Good afternoon. My name is Myra Hippolyte, and I work with the City of Houston Department of Neighborhoods, the Office of Neighborhood Engagements, under the direction of Division Manager Paul Green. On behalf of Mayor Sylvester Turner and Director Takasha Francis, we want to welcome you to the Month of Service. The Month of Service program is all about partnership. Sorry about that. The Month of Service partnership is all about giving back free information to the Houston, Harris County, state of Texas community. We want to make sure that whenever you're going through whatever stressor you are going through in your life, that you have all the information in front of you so that you can make whatever decision you need to. Guys, thank you so much. And I am going to shut down and hide my face because I am laughing too much. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay. Miss Lisa, we'll have you go last so that way you can just move on into your presentation. So Miss Jamie.
Okay, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making the time to join us today. I will be on behalf of the Harris County Tax Office and your tax assessor collector, Ms. Ann Harris Bennett. I welcome you to this workshop. Our goal here is to be a resource to help out the community, to provide useful information to help with your property tax matter. So reach out to us. We'll do all of our best to help you. With me on our chat room is Vicky Fatsura. She's our resource specialist. So type in your questions and we'll answer them as best as we can. Okay, enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Mabel, is she there, or Miss Sarah? Which one would you guys like to?
Yes, I'm here. If you can hear me.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't have my video on because I can hardly. There you are. I can hardly I can hardly hear anything, so I'm having to hold it up close. I am out at a senior citizen center in Baytown where we led a workshop this morning on exemptions for some seniors, so wasn't able to make it back to the building in time, so I am talking with you from my cell phone. I do have colleagues that are with us today. Ashley Washington, who is the exemption specialist, as well as also listening in is going to be my colleague Sarah Hatch. We are very pleased to be with you today to assist Lisa in answering questions about exemptions, which inevitably come up as we talk about clearing title and property taxes as it relates to clearing title on inherited property. So thank you for tuning in today.
Okay, Ms. Lisa.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lisa Nelson, and I am a staff attorney at the Earl Carl Institute for Legal and Social Policy. We are located on the campus of Texas Southern University, and I'm in the property preservation program where we help people with anything having to do with housing. I will head into my presentation, and I'll be monitoring the chat after I finish my part of the presentation, and will be available for questions at the end.
Okay, so go right ahead.
Okay. Okay, so we're here today to talk about handling inherited property. Let me close my screen there. There we go. Handling inheriting property. I'm going to start off with a brief overview about probate. We have so many great classes about the importance of having a will and what you need to do to get a will, but we haven't spent as much time talking about what to do when someone passes away. So we talk about that briefly with a focus on dealing with family property, and then I'll pass it over to Harris Central Appraisal District to talk about property taxes. So we added this segment to our presentation because we never talk about what happens when someone passes. And it besides the whole process of grief, there's a lot of business that you have to take care of. There's a lot of different vocabulary that we use in the probate world. Decedent is the person who passed away. Testator is the person who signed the will. So a testator can be living or deceased. It's just the phrase for the person whose will it is. A estate is when a person passes away who has a will. Intestate is when somebody dies and they did not have a will, or they didn't have a legally valid will. A bequest is a fancy word for inheritance or a gift. And probate is the legal process of administering a person's estate after they pass away. Probate is the general term for the courts. If somebody passes without a will, it is called an administration. And the judge appoints either an executor or an administrator, who is the person who is responsible for wrapping up the decedent's affairs and distributing assets to the beneficiaries. You may know of, you may have older loved ones in your life. You may know that you are an executor for someone, and it's important to get information from them while you're still able to. Even really simple things like, what do they want to do for their funeral? My grandmother loved talking about it, which I hated, but it was a gift to us when she passed because she had her funeral plan down to the hymns that we sang. And it made things so much easier for us. You also want to know what the nature is of their property. A lot of people are secretive about what they have. And if you're the one who's going to be responsible for taking care of their affairs, you need to know what it is that you need to take care of. For example, if they own rental property, you want a list of those addresses, if there's property managers. And you want to let them know, you want to find out if they have things to go to certain people. That would be called specific bequests. And that's things like, I want my china to go to my niece, Susan. Also, get information about all of their financial accounts. Find out what banks they use, what kind of accounts they have, what kind of insurance policies they have, and any other investments like retirement programs. This is critical. A lot of people will keep their will in a safe deposit box. If they do not, sometimes Miss Nia had an experience where she knew that there was a key for a safe deposit box and didn't even know which bank it was. So it's important to find out not just here's the key, but what is the bank where that safe deposit box is, and give make sure that you have permission to open it. Because if your loved one doesn't give you doesn't give the bank the authority, doesn't tell the bank that you have the authority to open their safe deposit box, you will have to go to court and get an order to access that will. One of the things that happens almost immediately after someone dies is that the bank closes the account. They don't want to have any fraud. Even if you are a signer on a parent's account, they will still close the account, even with that. So what you want to do before they pass away is make sure you have enough money for bills that will be coming right after they pass and funeral costs. So take that money and open up a new account somewhere else so that there's not any confusion and you don't have a couple of months when you can't access that money. And with that being said, take care of yourself. This is a really rough time. Take time to grieve, take time to process the fact that this person is gone. You have 4 years to probate a will. You know, enjoy spending time with family and friends and celebrating that person's life. Everybody wants to know about the death certificate. The funeral home will order that for you. You will ask them to process at least 5 to 10 copies for you. And it takes sometimes as much as a month before you'll get that death certificate. But everybody knows that. All of the businesses that you'll be working with know that, and that they will be patient. You want to locate documents, locate their will, locate any financial information, insurance policy information. If you are going to be the administrator of that person's estate, your first and foremost duty is to protect their assets. So you want to make sure that things don't go missing before you've had a chance to take care of everything. Because I can tell you from personal experience, there will be people that stop by the home after the funeral and they'll start helping themselves to things. So you want to make sure that everything that's valuable, everything that's supposed to go to somebody is in a safe spot. There's a lot of misperceptions about probate. You have to probate a will, even if there's a surviving spouse. I have a lot of clients that don't come to me until their second parent has passed away. We have to go back and probate the estate of the first parent who died and the second one. So you have to probate the will, even if you're the only one who inherits here. You must go through this court process in order to legally transfer any items from the deceased person's estate to yourself, to whoever it is that inherits it. This comes up quite a lot because people think that this is our family home. We don't need to worry about transferring anything. Down the road, you will find out that you don't have clear title to your home. And if it's been a significant amount of time since somebody has passed, it can be messy. You also have to probate the will in order to access bank accounts if they don't have transfer on death beneficiaries. Texas law requires that you hire an attorney to probate an estate. It's the one situation where you cannot represent yourself. And it's really important to find an attorney who's experienced in this area, because there's multiple ways to handle an estate, and the attorney will find out the best way and the most cost-efficient way. The attorney starts by filing an application with the court to open up the estate. That application has to be posted on a bulletin board at the courthouse for 10 days. After those 10 days pass, the attorney requests a court hearing. You need to go in front of the judge for about 5 minutes. It's not complicated, but it can take several months before you can get on the court schedule. After you go to the court, you will have a very brief process when you're in front of the judge to, if there's a will, present the will, and the judge will admit the will to probate. If there is no will, the judge will appoint an administrator of the estate. And after someone has been appointed to be in charge of the estate, the attorney has to give notice to everybody named in the will. Once somebody, within 2 months after somebody is appointed to be the administrator, the attorney has to send notices to everyone who has a claim against the estate. It is very important that you don't think you have to pay the bills as soon as someone passed away. I know that I said earlier you want to have access to some funds. That's to pay for the funeral. That's to pay if they're to keep the lights on in the house, things like that. But any other bills, credit card bills, doctor's bills, those have to go through the court process. And the attorney will send notices out to anyone who has a claim against the deceased person. And then the final step, within 90 days after being appointed to be executor, the executor and attorney file an inventory, appraisement, and list of claims. And this shows the assets and claims of the deceased person as of their date of death. Once you go through probate and you file the inventory, the court usually closes the case. That doesn't mean that the executor's job is done. You usually have to file a tax return for the year that the decedent passed away. Even if they pass away in January, you still have to file a tax return the following year. Texas does not have estate taxes. They are unconstitutional. And the federal estate tax exemption is 11.7 million for a single person, twice that for a married couple. So it is very unusual for there to be estate taxes, but there may be income taxes. One of the great things about going through the court process is that the creditors have to follow a very strict legal procedure to file a claim against the estate. If they don't use the words required by law, that's not considered a lawful claim. And the executor has 30 days once they filed a claim to either accept or reject it. They can reject it because there's no money. You know, there are plenty of times when there's claims against the estate. If that deceased person didn't have the money to pay it, that would be a reason to reject the claim. This applies to every debt except the IRS. That you cannot, you will have to pay that. Once the executor has paid all the bills that were owed by the deceased person, then they can pay the bills, pay the taxes, then they can distribute all of the things as provided in the will. Or if there was no will, they distribute it equally among all the loved ones. And then the final step is that the executor will record deeds to transfer any real estate and change title for any vehicles. So many people think that a power of attorney has the same effect as a will. It absolutely does not. Once someone passes away, powers of attorney are not valid. There are some very old wills where a married couple will have one will and they both sign it. That is not valid under Texas law. You need to have, each spouse needs to have their own will. This is a big surprise to people because Texas is a community property state. There can be a family home that was separate property. For instance, if someone bought a home prior to the marriage and kept it as their separate house, as opposed to giving their spouse a share in the house, if that's the case, the surviving spouse has the right to remain in the house for their entire life, but they cannot sell it and they have to pay property taxes and maintain the property. An executor administrator must be over the age of 18 and cannot have a felony conviction. And it's really good to appoint somebody to be your executor who lives in Texas, but you can get away with it if that's not possible. Like I said, you have to probate a will within 4 years of the date of death. There are very limited circumstances where you can probate it after 4 years if everyone agrees. Texas does allow lay people to make their own wills, but it has to be 100% in their own handwriting. That doesn't mean cursive. It can be cursive or printed. It just needs to be recognizable as that person's handwriting. It absolutely cannot be typed. If it's typed and signed, that is not a valid will. It's really not a good idea to use forms from the internet. I can tell you lots of stories. People wanted to save $500, so they downloaded something from the internet, and it ended up costing their loved one thousands of dollars because it wasn't a form that was valid under Texas law. And it can't be a form where you fill in the blanks. If you cannot find the original will, Texas law assumes that the will has been revoked. They assume that they tore up the original, they don't want it. However, if everybody named in the will agrees, you can probate a copy of the will. But if somebody doesn't agree to probate the copy of the will, or if one of the heirs is under the age of 18, you cannot have an independent administration. Texas law, if everybody gets along, everyone's an adult, everybody agrees that this one person will be our administrator, you can file what's known as independent administration, and it's almost the same as probating a will. It's fairly simple, it's fairly inexpensive. However, if somebody argues, if somebody is a child, you have to have dependent administration, which means that you have to get strict judicial approval for every single thing. You have to get a judge to approve to pay every bill. You have to get a judge to approve to have a garage sale. So please have a will. It makes life so much easier for your family. So like I said earlier, if everybody gets along, you can have independent administration, which is not difficult. But if anybody argues, the dependent administration is extremely expensive. There is something called a small estate affidavit. It is extremely rare that it will work. And I hear from courts every day that people file a small estate affidavit because it's cheaper, and it rarely works. It usually is not the way to go. Probate assets are the things that pass under the will, which can be a house. It is mainly your personal property, your household items, furniture, those kinds of things. Non-probate assets do not pass under a will. They pass in accordance with the terms of a contract. So that would be life insurance, retirement plans, payable on death accounts, joint tenants with right of survivorship, which is specific for real estate. So one thing that I tell everyone, call your bank, call your financial advisors this afternoon, and make sure that you have payable on death beneficiaries. If you have payable on death beneficiaries for all your financial accounts, your beneficiary will be able to access that money almost instantly, as opposed to waiting the 6 months to several years to go through the court process. When the judge appoints somebody to be either an executor or administrator, they give you what's called letters. The letters are your official permission slip from the court, that this way you can sell any property. You open up an estate bank account, which you open up the account and the name of the estate. So it'd be the estate of Mary Smith, deceased. And you would be able to transfer then everything from their personal bank account to this estate account, as well as any funds you acquire. Say if they had rental property, you would put that in the estate bank account. If you sell something, you would put that in the estate bank account. So the administrator collects all the money owed to the estate. The administrator can also file a lawsuit on behalf of the estate. For example, if somebody had been in a car accident, they're able to file a lawsuit to recover. The very important job of determining whether to authorize payment of any bills owed by the deceased person. So it's a very important document. If you go to the courthouse and say, my loved one passed away, she didn't have a will, I don't have a lawyer, they will tell you, do a small estate affidavit. That is absolutely wrong. This is the only probate proceeding that doesn't require an attorney in Harris and Fort Bend counties. There are some counties that do require an attorney. The value of the estate can't be more than $75,000. That does not include the homestead. And the debts cannot exceed the value of the estate. So if Mary Smith had an estate valued at $30,000, but she had $50,000 in debts, she would not be, her loved ones could not do a small estate affidavit. This is something, again, where all the parties have to agree. Every heir, every legal heir has to sign the affidavit stating that it's true. And then 2 witnesses who knew the deceased person well also have to sign it. Here's where people run into trouble and are out about $400. You cannot use a small estate affidavit to transfer a homestead unless there's a surviving spouse or minor child. If it's all adult children and maybe 1 or 2 of the children lived with their parent in the homestead, they cannot use this to transfer the property to themselves. And that leads us to how we can transfer inherited property to ourselves. This is really important. We have so many clients at the Earl Carl Institute that live in property that's been in the family for many generations. And they don't understand until a crisis happens that it was important to clear the property through each generation. What happens is we have a hurricane, a winter storm, and they apply for FEMA relief or relief from the city or the county, and they cannot qualify for that relief unless their name is on the title to the property. Also very critical is you can't get property tax exemptions if you don't have clear title for your home. And it's very important to think, I have younger clients who inherit property from a grandparent, and they won't let me change their property tax exemptions because they like that senior exemption. The tax assessor will find out that your loved one has passed, and you will be penalized if you don't report that there is a new owner of the home. The first way to do it is a judicial way, which means going through a court process. If your loved one has passed more than 4 years ago, and the only thing you need to do is transfer the real estate, you can probate a will. It's called probating a will as a muniment of title. And that basically means the only thing that happens is the judge signs an order saying this house will pass pursuant to the terms of the will. Mary Smith left her house to her niece, and now her niece, the judge orders that the niece now owns the home. You have to have an attorney for this. And this is another case where if it's been more than 4 years since the loved one passed, everybody who could legally inherit from that person has to agree to probate the will after 4 years. Adverse possession is the other judicial way that you can get a property declared yours. It's a legal process in which someone who doesn't have title to the property can obtain title through a lawsuit. There's very specific requirements and time periods in order to successfully claim land. You have to make it very clear that you are occupying that land. Keep the yard cleaned up. Fence it in, get your mail there, have your driver's license at that address. And once you meet once you meet all the elements that show that the whole world is on notice that you live there and you're residing in that place as your homestead, then you can go to court to claim your land. There's also non-judicial methods. This is just working through the court, through the clerk's office. An affidavit of heirship can be the simplest way to transfer property. This is basically a written family tree in which you list the deceased person, any marriages they had, divorces they had, all the children they had. This has to be signed by 2 disinterested witnesses. That would be people who knew the family well, but cannot legally inherit from that deceased person. And the affidavit of heirship must be notarized. The affidavit will transfer the title to all living heirs. And you file the affidavit of heirship with the county clerk in the county where the property is located. There's a minimal filing fee. In Harris County, it's $18 for the first page, $4 for each additional page. So it usually runs about right around $28, $30. This is something you can do on your own. TexasLawHelp.org has a sample form, and they have very good directions to walk you through the process. And one thing that's really critical is you need to have the full legal description of the real property. And I'll show that to you on the next slide. There is on your property tax bill, there is a space that will say legal description. That is not the full legal description. That is just the property tax description. So the legal description is, I use a short one. Some of them go on for pages. How you know that you have the legal description is it will have the recording information of the deed records in that county. The tax description just has the lot and the block and the subdivision name. It doesn't have the as recorded in volume whatever, page whatever of the records of Harris County Clerk. There's a scam that goes around once you transfer your property to yourself, to whoever. You get something that looks official. It says Harris County Public Information. It has information about the house. And it says you need to pay us $109 for your property assessment profile. This is a scam. It is not official by Harris County. Throw it away. Now I get to get back up on my soapbox and tell you the importance of having a will so that you name the person who we want to inherit your home. Even better is to do a transfer on death deed or a life estate deed. Those deeds allow you to transfer property when you pass away without the need to probate. This saves them the length of time it takes to go through the probate process, as well as the money to pay for the attorney. If you have a transfer and death deed or ladybird deed on file, your loved one just needs to go to the real property records and file an affidavit of death. So Texas law, this is a relatively recent law, allows real property owners to record a deed naming who will inherit their real property after they die. Again, TexasLawHelp.org has a sample form and a very good instructions on how to fill out that form. This does not give out your house while you are living. You own your house 100% during your life. Like the affidavit of heirship, you have to have that full legal description, and it has to be recorded in the real property records prior to your death. You can change your beneficiaries. These deeds are revocable. I have people who want, I had a client who wants his house to be sold and the money to go to his grandchildren. His grandchildren are still children. So he has a daughter who is trustworthy, and she will inherit the house and has the instructions to sell the house and distribute the funds. Once the grandchildren are adults, he can revoke that deed and have a transfer on death deed naming the grandchildren as beneficiaries. Like I said, this saves them so much time and money. It also protects your estate from Medicaid estate recovery. If you use Medicaid to pay for nursing home benefits, Medicaid can seek reimbursement once the person who was a Medicaid patient and their surviving spouse have passed away. They can force a sale of the home in order to recoup their investment. So if you have this transfer on death deed or a revocable life estate deed, Medicaid legally cannot seek reimbursement, and you keep that generational wealth in your home and your family. An enhanced life estate deed is something that's been around forever. A lot of people call it a ladybird deed. If you see an elder law attorney, they usually do this in Medicaid planning so that a loved one's assets won't be attacked after they are deceased. The enhanced life estate deed is also revocable and has to be recorded in the county clerk's office. I will put this information in the chat. My intake number is 713-313-1158. We also have some great partners that can help you with legal advice. There's Lone Star Legal Aid, Houston Volunteer Lawyers. Legal Line is a way to get a free consult with an attorney. And there's a Houston Lawyer Referral Service that will also provide you with the names of attorneys and specific practice areas. I am going to pass this on to my property tax friends, and I'll be available after to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Miss Sarah and Miss Jamie, you guys are up. I just wanted to kind of let everybody know why we chose to include the Harris County our tax office as well as the Central Appraisal District. There are various exemptions that you can take advantage of as being an heir to an inherited property that we wanted them to kind of give context to so that everybody are aware. In addition to that, what happens when your loved one passes and they've got those deferred property taxes and those things become due after your loved one has then passed away, or if you're unaware that there's deferred property taxes, what are your payment options? What's available to you? So that's why we chose to make sure that they were included on this so that this can be part of the whole conversation as it relates to inherited property, because that is a huge issue in a lot of communities where people don't know, how they end up losing out on their inherited property because of back taxes that are owed. So Ms. Jamie, you want to go ahead and chime in there?
Sure, absolutely. Let me pull up my presentation. Here we go. And do we see it now, right?
Not yet, no.
Oh, thanks. Okay, hang on. Let me see. Let me do share screen here. Okay. Do you see it now?
Yes, ma'am. It's coming up. There
Okay,
it goes.
so the full thing. Okay, so absolutely great information there, Lisa, because at the tax office we see this so often. We're so close to the courthouse, people come and record their deeds and their wills, and so it's like they'll stop by and says, well, how do I get this into my name? Well, there's a procedure for that.
Thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Just want to do a quick introduction. On the chat with me today is Vicki Fetzera. She's our customer service tax specialist. So if you have questions about our property tax, please type them in, and Vicki will be happy to answer them. And then we'll share them with our audiences a little while, because sometimes people may have the same or similar questions as you. So it's always good. This forum, on behalf of Ms. Ann Harris-Bennett, your tax assessor collector, our goal for this forum is to be a resource to provide you with information that you normally would not, take a day off or go into the Earl Carl Institute or go into the appraisal district's office, or much less to the tax office and say, hey, I want to learn something about this. So, we're providing information at your fingertips as easy as possible. Okay, so without further ado, let me go ahead and do our presentation. And then afterward, the Harris Central Appraisal District will talk to you about, your property appraisals and the benefits of the exemptions and property tax protests as well too. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. So on behalf of Ms. Ann Harris-Bennett, your Harris County Tax Assessor Collector, I want to welcome you to today's session. The tax office collects over $8 billion in property taxes, and we represent only about 79 taxing units in Harris County. This is about 79 out of some 500 taxing units, and from these, there are about 1.7 million property accounts. This goes from your average residential property to your commercial business, even down to your business personal properties that are operational in Harris County. So we represent the Harris County, the city of Houston, Houston Independent School District, Katy Independent School District, flood control. So a variety of taxing units, and the resources from our collection goes to fund local activities, the communities. And as we are just gearing up right now on the beginning process of truth and taxation, I want to share with you as far as how we calculate your tax bill. At this point in time, the appraisal district have already mailed out the majority of their property notices. You should already receive those, and if you haven't, they'll our friends at the appraisal district will tell you they're working on that. They'll mail that out to you. But during this process, the appraisal district and the property owners work together to determine or to come to an agreement on the property value. Okay, so this is when the taxable value is determined. I want to remind you that May 15th or 30 days after you receive your property notice is the deadline for you to file your notice of protest. Okay, so after the value is settled or is agreed upon between the appraisal district and the property owner, next comes the tax rate setting, and this is done by the jurisdictions, the board of governors or the board of directors for the taxing units. And usually in this process, that's called the truth and taxation process, where there are legal notices that we share to the community, and we invite people to join and participate in the discussion. Ms. Ann Harris Bennett always encourages property owners and residents to participate in this process. Go online to hear the hearing or sign up and attend these sessions, because this is where they determine how much to tax you on. Okay, and also I want to share with you at this time, the state legislature is in session. So a lot of discussion about property taxes and how the state can help lower your property taxes. So reach out to your state legislatures, reach out to your local representatives and share your thoughts, share your opinions with them. Okay, they need your feedback in order to make good laws and rules. Okay, so you have the taxable value determined. You have the board of directors setting the tax rate. So once those two components are available, the tax office, what we do is we take those two, we take the taxable value, we multiply by the tax rate, and we apply any applicable exemptions that the property owner may be entitled to. So from there, we generate the tax bill. Now, the tax bill will be available for most properties around the end of October or beginning of November. Okay, so you would have already received your tax bill, and this is just a snapshot of your tax bill. You have, if you're sending in your payment, make sure you attach this coupon with your payment if you're mailing it in by mail. Yeah, because here's the thing, your account number is already on the site here. If you're making payments, you're going to need that account number, and it helps us to post that payment correctly. And here's the owner information. If you've moved or your mailing address has changed, go online to the appraisal district's website, or you can also get the form from our website for the appraisal district to update your mailing information so that we can get the bill to you to the correct address, so that there's no delay in you receiving your upcoming tax bill. Okay, some recent changes to your property taxes, to the laws or the exemptions that would help reduce your property tax. First of all, Harris County has increased the exemption amount for property owners that are over 65 years old, or disabled veterans, or surviving spouses of anyone in that category. So Harris County has increased the exemption amount from $229,000 to $250,000. Okay, for the same category of owners, the City of Houston has increased the exemption amount from $160,000 to $260,000. And for the school taxes, the general homestead exemptions for all for property owners has increased from $25,000 to $40,000. Okay, and some additional component as well as the homestead exemptions. You are eligible for a prorated homestead exemptions beginning from when you actually acquired the property, as opposed to just ownership on January the 1st. So you get a prorated homestead on that exemption. Now, these elements combine to help lower your property taxes. So make sure, if you qualify for the over 65 exemption, or disabled veterans or surviving spouse exemptions, make sure you apply those. And if you qualify for the homestead exemption, make sure you apply for those, because it affects your school taxes and affects your general homestead exemption taxes for these reductions. Okay. Now, here's a, I always say, picture's worth 1,000 words. This is the graph that shows a comparison of, on the first one, you see a sample of a property in Harris County or in the city of Houston. That's about $325,000. If that property does not have any exemption on it, your average tax bill you're looking at is a little bit over $7,000. Okay. Now, if that property owner qualifies for homestead exemptions, you're seeing a reduction in that tax bill. Okay. You're seeing probably almost a third reduction in tax bill due to the homestead exemption. And then lastly, if the property owner is over 65 years old or disabled veterans or a surviving spouse of anyone in that category, you're seeing that tax bill drastically dropped. Okay, dropped to about a third, less than a third of the actual bill if there were no exemptions. So it does benefit the property owner to apply if they qualify for the over 65 or, for the general homestead exemptions, because if for the first year, you do have to apply. Remember, if you don't apply, you're leaving money on the table. So if you have questions about this, please reach out to the tax office. Please reach out to the Harris Central Appraisal District. We'll be more than happy to help you with your questions about exemptions. Now, there's another tax benefit that we have for property owners that are over 65, disabled veterans or surviving spouses of anyone in that category, and it's called a tax limitations. I equate the tax limitation to something of a sort of like an insurance policy. Okay, not so much of as far as once you apply for the over 65 exemption, the homestead. Your homestead exemption when you turn 65, your school taxes freeze. Okay, and we call it as a tax ceiling or a tax freeze. And what happens is the school portion of your taxes remain unchanged unless, of course, you make major upgrades to the property or unless you sell or transfer or change ownership to another property. Okay, so that freeze is on the school taxes and on some taxing unit if the board of directors opt for that option. But mostly it's the school taxes. Okay, that remains unchanged. And throughout the year, if there's been no major renovations or major changes to the property, the amount of taxes that you pay remains unchanged, so to speak, the tax freeze. And another benefit of for the over 65 disabled exemption group is the tax deferral. And I want to emphasize a tax deferral is not a cancellation of taxes. It merely delays the taxes that you have to pay. Now, in this delay process, you don't have to pay the penalties for that. And you don't have to be burdened with collection notices. Now, the benefit is that, once you file a tax deferral, you won't get collection calls and you won't get penalties assessed to your account. You just get a flat rate of a 5% per annum on any unpaid balances on the account. It postpones your tax payment. This is mostly a benefit that the state legislatures provide for property owners that are over 65, disabled veterans or surviving spouse, because most of these folks are on fixed income. So it allows them to postpone that taxes until when that property is transferred to another hand, or until they say, hey, I'm ready to make a payment now, so I can make the payment without the penalties. Now, to get the tax deferral, you need to apply that through the appraisal district. There's an affidavit that you need to complete, and you need to submit the information through the appraisal district. Once that is approved, the appraisal district would send us the information to code the account as a tax deferral. Now, when you file a tax deferral, it doesn't mean that you can't pay the taxes early. You can still do that the same. I've always equate this as having an extra protection in case you forget to pay your taxes. If you forget to pay your taxes at the end of January, if you don't have a deferral on that, it's an automatic 7% penalty and interest. However, if you have the tax deferral on that, and it's March, it's April, you would only be assessed a 5% per annum on what is not paid, the unpaid balances on the account. Now, before you apply for this, if you still have a mortgage on your property, please consult with your mortgage company. Make sure that they're okay with that, because some mortgage company does not accept tax deferral. So check with them first. But as always, reach out to us. Also contact the appraisal district as well if you have information or if you need help to sort through this tax deferral. Right now we are in April, the middle of April. So if you still have unpaid taxes, please reach out to us. We'll help you with the payment plan. We have several types of payment plan to assist. We have quarterly payments, which are for the over 65 disabled or disabled veterans or surviving spouse owners. And then we also have the generic payment plans that are ranging from 12 months through 36 months. Okay. And the benefits of having a payment plans on your account is that once you have a payment plan on your account, there is no additional attorney's fees attached to that beyond when you start that payment plan. Lisa had mentioned earlier, you may inherit these properties, and from the property, the prior owner may have taxes that are unpaid. Okay. Don't just put them aside. Please reach out to us, let us know, hey, I just got this from my grand uncle. Okay. And it has some taxes on it. Or, hey, can you take a look to see if there's any back taxes that are owed? Or how do I get a structured payment plan so that I can manage this tax, paying this tax back and still keep the property? Okay, because remember, the taxes goes with the property. Okay, and once the property changes hand, the taxes are still there. So reach out to us. We'll do all of our best to help you answer those questions. And then, if you're making a payment, I always tell the folks, don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait till the last day. If you're going to be mailing in your payment, make sure it gets postmarked and you see the post office put a stamp on it before the deadline of the taxes due. Because if you drop it in that blue box and it get postmarked a day after the due date, it will incur penalty and interest. The best way to pay for your taxes would be go online to www.hctax.net, or you can also pay by phone as well too at 713-274-2273. Or if you want, if you're paying by cash, please stop by the branches and you can make your cash payments. Now we accept credit card payments. They come with a 2.45% convenience fee that is assessed by the banking institutions, not by the tax office. Or you can also pay by check or e-check. These are free. There's no charge to paying by e-check. And of course, like I said before, if you pay cash, please make sure to go to the branch. Do not mail cash. If you have questions, please contact us. You can check out our website at www.hctax.net for additional resources and information about your property tax. Or you can also email to us at tax.office@hctx.net, or you can call us at 713-274-8000. Like I said, if there are any questions about property tax or properties that we can't help you with, of course, we'll try our best to help you. But if there's anything that we can't help you with, we'll reach out to our forum partners here, and we'll refer you to our partners that would have the information to better assist you. Again, on behalf of Ms. Ann Harris-Bennett, I want to thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn this over to the appraisal district, the Harris Central Appraisal District. Thank you so much.
Ms. Mabel, are you there?
All right, I am back on after losing connectivity. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, are you Nia, or I would like to, also welcome my colleague Ashley Washington. Uh, and I think Ashley's got some information she would like to share with you about exemptions, which I believe was a big part, one of the primary questions that often are part of clearing title and inherited property. So I would like to welcome Ashley Washington.
Okay. Hold on.
Thank
Ashley, are
you.
you
Can everybody
great?
hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how do I, this is my first time. Can I share my
I just made
screen?
you
Okay,
co-host. Go right ahead.
all right. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right, so my name is Ashley Washington and I work for the Harris Central Appraisal District. I'm an exemption specialist. And we put exemptions on homes. So exemptions, what are they? How can they save money? Who qualifies? How do I get them? And when are they no longer valid? Are a couple of questions property owners have. Exemptions, or to me, I like to bring it down just a little bit, are a discount on your property taxes. Basically, you have your general residential homestead exemption, you have your over 65, your over age 55 surviving spouse, disability, disabled veterans, total disabled veterans, and our first responders killed in a line of duty. Let's see. These exemptions, let's start off with the general homestead. The general homestead exemption, now we have that new law that came into effect January 1 of 2022. Now, new owners can apply as soon as they occupy the home. They'll get a prorated exemption on, and then they'll get their full exemption the following year. You have your over 65 exemption. You have to be 65 and older at the time that you apply for your exemption to get that discounted rate. It could be up to, I think, 15,000, 25,000 discount of your appraisal value. Then you have your surviving spouse. If your spouse passes away and they're over the age of 65 and the spouse is 55 and older, they're qualified for a surviving spouse exemption after the following year. Then you have your disability exemption. That is from Social Security. If you're disabled, from the railroad, Teachers Association, you get that option as well. Then you have your disabled veterans, all branches. You have a percentage starting from 0 to 10%, all the way up to 100%. And then, of course, your first responder exemption, and that started with Hurricane Harvey. So anything, anybody that was a police officer, fireman, things to that nature, if they were killed in the line of duty, the surviving spouse will be able to benefit that exemption as well. Let's see. Then for your residential homestead exemption, you have your 10% appraisal increase cap. Now they had that new law that started, now instead of 25,000, now it's 40,000, and that might subject to change next year for that exemption. Now, as I stated, you have to be 65 for that exemption. For the over 65, disability, SSI. For over 65 and disability, you do have that tax ceiling or freeze, and they receive up to 10,000 for school taxes, in additional to the 40,000 exemption to the homeowners. And they're eligible for tax deferral and installments without any penalties as well. I think that last lady, I can't remember her name. Let me see. I think it was
Jamie,
Vicky. No, Sarah.
Jamie.
Jamie, yes, Jamie. Jamie made a good reference with the surviving spouse exemption. You want to make sure that you get your exemption in if the spouse dies, and I understand everybody's mourning and they got to get their paperwork together, but you want to make sure that surviving spouse is applying for that exemption, doing that name change, because if they do decide to sell the home, they might be missing out on more benefits. And then it's a whole can of worms after that. You might lose your exemptions. So if there is a surviving spouse, make sure they apply once they get those death certificates and all that paperwork in, so we can go ahead and apply that exemption, and we can go ahead and keep that cap on there for that surviving spouse. Let's see. Now, the immediate homestead exemption is very new, and we have property owners, real estates, realtors and title companies coming in. So this is how this immediate resident homestead exemption works. Now, if you're a new owner for a new construction or a home that was previously built and it does not have any exemptions on there, you are eligible for a prorated immediate resident homestead exemption. So we'll add it on that first year, the day that you occupied, and then that second year, you'll get that full exemption. If there is an exemption on the previous home, on that new home, you will benefit from the previous owner's exemptions, and then we'll go ahead and grant next year, if next year is available, or you have to wait January 1 next year to apply. So you may want to make sure before closing, hey, does that property have exemptions on it? Can I go ahead and apply now? Because we don't want you to go ahead and apply and there's exemptions on there and you're waiting to hear something back, and you probably won't get anything back until a couple of months from now. So you just want to make sure, get with your title company and get with your realtor and make sure if there's exemptions on the property or not. Heirship exemptions. With heirship property, now the law is that you have to show a death certificate showing that the property owner has passed away, a utility bill showing that there is services at the home. The bill does not have to be in your name. You do have to show some type of heirship documentation saying that you are related to the property owner that passed away. Now you have two options. You can get your exemptions at a percentage if other people stay there too as well. But if you're the only one, we'll go ahead and grant that exemption at 100%, but you're not considered the owner, you're considered the heir. So we'll still have the deceased property owner's name on the owner's tab as estate of until legal documentation is provided through the courts. So, and then the deadline, you can go back as far as 2021 right now to get any back exemptions. Now, how to apply for exemptions? Applications can be mailed, email, mobile app, or online. Depending on the process, yes, it does take longer. We have a process time right now to 30 to 90 days, sometimes even longer because of that new IRE. Those exemptions are coming, they have quadrupled now, because as soon as a property owner purchases a home, they're applying for exemptions. So we just ask for y'all to please be patient with us while we're processing these applications. For a quicker response, I suggest to do it online on hcad.org. It's a lot easier. You'll be able to fill out the form, scan and submit your information, and go from there. If it's heirship property, prefer to go ahead, mail it in, make sure it's certified, or come up here to the front counter so the ladies can assist you. Okay, so you do get your annual notice every year. March 31st is the letter, the date of the letter, and it'll let you know if you have exemptions on there. They took off, I think they took off the estimated value on there now, so it just lets you know that, hey, you have residential and over 65 exemptions. This is our online homestead application. Basically, you fill in as much as possible. Please make sure you research your account number before you do your application so you can have the correct account number. Because if you do not, it sends the application somewhere else until we'll be able to index it to the correct account, and that might take longer for it to process. So make sure you have the correct account number when you're filling out the application. Qualifications. Excuse me. Can't see it just a little bit. Okay. Qualifications, you have to own and occupy your home as your primary residence. Submit your driver's license with the address of the property. So make sure when you're filling out that application, you sign and date that application on section 6. Make sure you submit a valid driver's license with the site address on there so we can go ahead and grant those exemptions quickly. And like it says, exemptions are not granted automatically. You must apply. Every year we have a confirmation card. You want to make sure that your mailing address is up to date on our account, because if the confirmation is returned, most likely your exemptions are going to be canceled, or like we said, recalls when we send out information to say, hey, are you still there? Because the post office is saying that you're not, and you might be staying somewhere else. So you want to make sure that your address is updated so you can get that confirmation card. And this is our website, the Harris County Appraisal District. You would go on to online services, click on that to go ahead and apply. Your paper forms is under forms. And then, like I stated, make sure you have the correct account number, and you can research that under property search. All information is public. Now we have the temporary disaster exemptions for property that was damaged by a disaster. The property owner has 105 days to file. Last day is May the 11th to apply. The damage must be at least 50% of the value based on the 2023 value. And that application can be found on hcat.org. That is actually through a different department. Make sure you have the correct paperwork and pictures showing the damage. And then you can contact us through our local office and our website at 13013 Northwest Freeway, Houston, Texas, 77040, at www.hcat.org. The general phone number, 713-957-7800. And if you have any questions or have any missing documents that you need to send in quickly, you can send it at the email help@hcat.org. So that's generally about it. Does anybody have, that's about it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Washington.
Thank you.
There have been quite a, Ms. Mabel, I'm sorry, was there anything else that you'd like to add before we get into the questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. All right, there are questions that are here in the chat, and there were a couple that were emailed to me prior to the beginning of this presentation. So the first one that we've got here in the chat, I believe is for you, Miss Lisa. My siblings and I became co-owners of a home using affidavit of heirship. My sibling passed away. How do we remove the name from the as owner?
That is a great question. If the sibling had any children, those children would be entitled to the siblings share. But what you would want to do is an affidavit of heirship for that sibling. And that would remove the sibling from the title.
But the name would then be replaced with the children of that sibling.
Correct. You would do an affidavit of heirship if regardless of whether the sibling had children. So the affidavit of heirship, if the sibling had children, it would list the siblings' children and the living siblings.
Okay. All right. How do you find a probate lawyer?
There is a really great service called the Houston Lawyer Referral Service. I will look up the number in a second and put it in the chat. But they have they maintain a list of all of really good attorneys. They vet them to make sure they're good attorneys. You will get a 30-minute consult for, I think, $25. So what you want to do is be very organized, have your list, and you can in 30 minutes to determine whether you like that attorney. I recommend interviewing a couple because you want to pick somebody that you like and that you trust. Also, you can, ask your friends, ask your neighbors, see who they recommend.
Okay. My mother and I had a joint checking and savings account prior to her death. I did not open an estate account, but have continued to, let's see, but have to continue to use the same account regarding the estate. Is that okay?
That's fine. I'm surprised that the bank let you keep that open.
Me too.
Because the last time I was visiting a bank, I asked the banker what they do in this situation. And they say that if there's a joint account holder, they always encourage them to open up a new account. If they're letting you do it, I guess it's fine, but you may want to go ahead and close that account out and open a new account.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I have a family that I'm working with to help sell their inherited property. It's $100,000 behind in taxes, but one of the deceased applied for a military tax relief prior to his death. How do I confirm that the family will get the tax exemption to decrease the amount that is owed?
Did he have it before he passed away?
Ms. Green, you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, everybody. So the family, it wasn't the family, it was, I don't remember who it was told us, but they showed where he applied for it, that he applied for the exemption, but I don't have a way to confirm that either he followed through with it. I had the family go back and apply for it themselves along with the heirship exemption, but I don't know how to confirm that it was received and if the exemption will be applied.
You would need to call up here with the account number to see if we received any documentation. If it was granted, we do send grant letters out saying, hey, this property owner has been granted for a disabled veteran exemption.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
But if he hadn't applied, how is there a way to go back and get the exemption while he was alive?
Well, it depends on which year he passed away. So let's say if he passed away before 2021, because 2021 is our cutoff date, we can only go 2 years. So if he passed away before 2021, unfortunately, they will not be able to get that exemption. So if he applied in if he passed away in 21 and 22, they would need to submit a death certificate. And the death certificate has to have the site address on it because it's showing that he did live at the property on the death certificate. And then we'll ask for the correct documentation and the application. The spouse or the family member can apply for the deceased on the deceased behalf.
Okay, thank you. And then you guys will be able to tell us, I guess, how much of an exemption they would be able to get?
The tax office can do an estimate on that, but mind you, it's only an estimate if the appraisal district approves that exemption.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There was a question here, does the home have to be paid off? And I'm assuming that was when you were talking about deferrals. No, not deferral. Yeah, about
I'm
deferrals.
wondering if it's about transfer on death deeds.
Ms. Lugo, do you want to unmute to clarify? And I understand Ms. Vicky has gone back and she's been answering some of these questions in
Yes,
the chat.
yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, my question was, my husband and I are both, well, I'm gonna be 65 and he's 67. Our home is not paid off. And I'm inquiring about the over 65 exemption. I know we can't defer all of our taxes, but also about the freeze where y'all were talking about school cap freezes. Because I pay a little bit of Aldi and a little bit of HISD. Is that
Okay.
too much information?
No, let me take a stab at that, and then Ashley, if I'm missing anything, please help me supplement, okay? So the over 65 exemption, you're way past your due. You need to submit that application and apply for it, okay? Early.
Okay.
You don't have to pay off your tax. Has nothing to do with paying off your taxes at all when applying for the over 65 exemptions. You know, merely the fact that you're a property owner to this property and this is your primary residence, then you can submit the paperwork to the appraisal district along with the copy of your driver's license. As a matter of fact, I think Ashley will tell you, you can go online and submit that online and get that process through without having to go to the post office. Now, on the next topic of the tax deferral, before you apply for that affidavit for tax deferral, you should consult your mortgage company if you haven't paid off your mortgage yet, because some mortgage company does not accept tax deferral, because basically the tax deferral is saying, hey, I owe you taxes, but I'm not going to pay you now. Okay.
Correct.
And you can defer all of your taxes. Okay. Let's say you owe 3 years of taxes and you can defer all of it. Okay. Just know that as long as the mortgage company accepts that and the tax deferral is approved by the appraisal district and it gets coded onto your account, any unpaid taxes on that only accrues the 5% interest. There's no penalty to it. Okay. Now let's say when you get your income tax from the IRS, you know, in April or in May, and you're feeling, hey, I'm going to pay $1,000 toward my property tax. That's fine. You can pay $1,000 toward that. Okay. Or you can just say, you know what, I plan on selling this property in 5 years. I'm not paying any of these taxes because I need this money to live on for whatever reason. Okay. So that's the tax deferral. Now the tax freeze, the tax ceiling comes along as a benefit once you apply for the over 65 exemption. It's automatic. The freeze is automatic. Okay. When you submit that over 65 affidavit to the appraisal district and they approve that to you and it comes to us, it gets coded as over 65. So unless, like I said in my presentation, unless you make drastic changes, you add a room, you add a tennis court, you do something dramatic, you know, to your property after that year, then the year that you turn 65, that taxes for the school remain unchanged. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean your tax bill remain unchanged, because on your tax bill, there are at least 5, if not 6 other taxing units. And most of them don't adopt the tax freeze. Okay. So only the school portion of it is frozen, and everything else just, you know, fluctuates, goes up and down, depending upon the value of your property. And once we applied the exemption to it, you know, according to the tax rate.
Okay. And that's the part that I didn't understand, was the school freeze and the
there's nothing you have to do with the freeze, you know, as long as you don't, you know, add a 5 mega kitchen to it.
Well, no, I don't intend to do any of that. No.
I mean, just regular maintenance, regular, you know, caretaking of the property, then there's nothing you have to do for the freeze. It automatically becomes a part of that over 65 exemption package, so to speak, on your property tax.
Okay.
And if I can piggyback over off of Jamie, we get a lot of calls that says, oh, I'm over 65 and I'm exempt. It is not, you're not exempt from the taxes. It's like she said, it's a frozen amount. So you got to keep that in mind. You're still going to pay taxes. You're not gonna be exempt. The only exemption that you're totally exempt is if you're a total disabled veteran.
It's a misnomer. I know we always say, call it something that people understand, not something that confuses people, you know?
Well,
Yes,
it does get confusing when you get people to say, oh, well, I don't pay any taxes on my property expense. I'm, automatically exempt. And that becomes a difference between what the exemption is versus the value of the property. So if
correct,
you're living in a
correct.
property that's only worth $160,000 or something like that, and what's the maximum, the city of Houston exemption is now up to
40,000. Oh,
Well, the
230,000.
school is 40
The
and
200
the county is, the city is 260.
Uh-huh,
Yeah, so if
260.
your house is not worth $260,000 and then it's only worth 150, 200,000, then that's where that exemption then kind of comes in and you don't actually pay taxes. But that can become really confusing for a lot of seniors and a lot of other people. So the most important thing is to make sure you're having the conversations with the family members, especially those seniors, so that they can get a real good understanding about what it is that they're signing up for and what it is that they're getting. Because sometimes they get confused when they signed up for a deferral, and the deferral, they think that they're now exempt. So even now the family members think, oh, well, my mom doesn't have to pay tax anymore.
Yes.
But then, 5-10 years from now, when you find out when she passes away, oh, I thought she was exempt from taxes. Well, no, now you've got 5-10 years worth of property taxes that are now
Yes.
due only because they were deferred and not exempt. So definitely have the conversation and get the clarity about the difference between the exemption and the deferral and what it is that senior is applying for, and make sure that they have that understanding. So someone has a question here about when to apply for the over 65. Like if she turns 65 in the summer, when can she apply?
She can go ahead and apply the year that she becomes 65. So January 1 of the year that you became 65, go ahead and put your application in. Because by the time we get to it, you probably just had your birthday. So
And does it take effect for that year?
it takes effect for that full year. Yes.
For that full year. Okay,
Yes.
great. All right. Should you or could I set up an estate bank account before the death, especially since you have a joint ownership, grandparents and 3 siblings with children of the 3 siblings?
You cannot set up an estate account till the person has passed away. What you could do is set up an account for your family members that they have control over. You could set up a separate account so that the siblings and whoever, I can't remember the list of people that she said, but go ahead and set up a separate account for them. But the bank won't let you set up an estate account till somebody has passed away.
Okay. How do you confirm exemptions are in place? And I think you kind of will, and how much the discount for the taxes will be. So you said you can give an estimate.
Yes, to know if your exemptions are in place, like I stated before, you'll receive a grant letter in the mail stating that your exemptions have been granted, or you can also go to hcad.org and it will show you, type in the account number or property address, and it will list what type of exemptions are on there.
I thought they took that off for privacy purposes, though. I think
No, it's still on there.
Exemptions.
It's still on there. It'll show residential exemption, and then it'll say multiple.
Yeah.
But you will have to call in to see what the multiple are. But it does give you the basic residential exemption on the account.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Okay, Ms. Lisa put in the chat the Houston Lawyer Referral Service website, and that's hlrs.org if you are interested in getting a referral for a probate attorney. Now, let me also say this: Houston Lawyer Referral is a sub of a division of the Houston Bar Association. Now, if you are interested in getting legal assistance, please apply for the service with Earl Carl, with Houston Volunteer Lawyers, and with Lone Star Legal Aid. Do not automatically discount yourself and automatically assume that you don't qualify, or you have too many assets or what have you. when they say it's income qualification, because there's different income levels for, in order to be qualified. So these legal service organizations will assist with any civil legal assistance, including an entire estate plan, not just creating a will, but also the transfer of death deed, the guardianship, power of attorney documents, all of those kinds of things that make up an estate plan. They actually do that for you on your behalf. So do not automatically discount yourself and think that you don't qualify. So definitely apply with them first, and then if not, then you can contact the Houston Loyal Referral Service, and then they can, there are some attorneys that they actually have that they are referring to because of the a month of service program, that there are certain attorneys that they will refer to you also that give discounted rates because of the partnership that we have here as well. So
that is correct. And if you need estate planning, Amos has monthly estate planning clinics where we can put that together for you. And we have, it's not just Earl Carl, multiple partners are providing this service. And I'll include that that flyer for the pre-assessment and participation in the will clinics if you guys are interested in that as well, when I send out the recording, and also the links of all of the resources that you guys have mentioned here that will also be included. Now, there were a couple of that were sent to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
While you're looking for those, can I just make an additional clarification on the temporary disaster exemption that Ashley spoke about?
Absolutely.
That one is up there because of the Baytown and Pasadena area residents who may have experienced property damage during the recent tornadoes in January. That temporary disaster exemption kicks in whenever the governor declares a disaster, and those tornadoes were declared as a disaster. So anyone who may be listening, or anyone who's listening may know someone out there who was affected by the tornadoes. They have until May 11th. Time is closing in. They have until May 11th to file for that temporary disaster exemption. So, and it starts with 15% of their property damage, but we encourage people who feel they may be eligible for it to please go ahead and sign up for it, because time is running out on that. Just wanted to clarify.
I'm not sure what Miss Vicky, what you just put into the chat, but it didn't go through, whatever that is. But Miss Lisa, there was a question up here earlier too. What is the process when someone passes without a will? Let me see. I know I saw.
And week 14 it obviously sticks out. That was the week of COVID. What we like to try is what is.
Well, there was another question that I have here while I'm looking for that one. About a disabled beneficiary for an estate for someone that did not have a will. If the person has been deceased and now, or has passed, but they were taking care of a disabled child, can that disabled child become, or a disabled adult, I'm sorry, become the beneficiary of the property that was owned by the person that passed? And then how does that work? Especially if they're autistic.
You need to talk to somebody, not just a probate attorney, but someone who specializes in helping people with disabilities, because the disabled child needs to be careful that they don't lose any of their benefits. So they can absolutely be a beneficiary, but they might want to transfer it into a specific type of trust, because you don't want to lose any public benefits.
Another question. How do you protect yourself against title theft?
I do not know. I will defer to my colleagues.
Yeah, that's all it says. How do you protect yourself against title theft? I guess that kind of feeds into my question that I always ask you, Jamie, about folks when they go and they attend all of these seminars, come figure out how do you get these properties, and all you got to do is pay the back taxes and you become the property owners and so on and so forth.
I think there's also a workshop I think this upcoming weekend down in Rocheron, Texas, or something like that. I see it on what is it, YouTube commercials or something, one of those online commercials that says, hey, it's free, come and we'll teach you how to get somebody else's property, just pay for the tax certificates. My answer has always been, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. From the Harris County Tax Office perspective, one of the requirements is you need to pay for the property taxes. And for us, when you make a payment to that, it doesn't matter who paid it, you're not getting it back. And even if you're not the property owner, you're making that payment, it's considered voluntary payment. So once you go through the process, you pay the taxes, you hire a lawyer, and you get in front of the judge, and the judge asks you for your qualifications for getting this property that doesn't belong to you or has any direct connections to you. And if he's not satisfied with the answer and he denies it, you're out of your attorney's fees, you're out of your property tax fees, and you've invested all of the years hawking on this and having nothing to prove for it. So like I said, do your due diligence, and make sure if you're looking for something like that, just be cautious, because the taxes that you're paying, you won't get it back. And I don't know about the attorney's fees that you're paying, if you're going to get it back or not.
Okay. So you already answered, you cannot file a will, an application for probate without an attorney. We have heirship property, and my father has multiple children. We cannot locate all children. What do they do?
You can file an affidavit of heirship with all of those children's names on it. If you can't locate it, that's okay, but you do need to have as full of a description of those people as you can. You don't have to have their address, but you should have their names.
Ooh, she said 50 kids. He said, my father
Oh
had
my
50.
gosh.
Oh, attorney's fee galore. Ad litem fee. Ad litem fee galore.
Yes.
Throw the whole house away.
It might be worth it.
Yeah.
To have to get an attorney to file an application for determination of heirship, and there will be an attorney ad litem whose job it will be to find those people. And in this situation, if you want to, that would be the safest way to protect the property. It will be expensive.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh my gosh. And the process of service for that stuff.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's going to be a field day.
Okay.
Actually, I do want to tag on to Lisa's
Please.
presentation and add this point. And I know I always try to do this so that at least, we make it easier for the heirs. If you're a parent or if you're a grandparent, you're thinking about giving the house or the real estate to your kids, do yourself a favor and pick one. Okay, pick one and name that person to be the person inheriting that property. From the experience of the tax office customer service, we've seen so many times, even when a property is split out between two siblings, no one will pay the taxes. It ends up, much less no one will cut the yard if they're not living there. Okay, if they don't have if they don't have a right to live in that house, or if they don't have an interest, or they have their own property already and they're not living there, they're not going to cut the yard. That means the city's going to tag them for, deed violations of some sort, okay. So, but do yourself a favor and just, it's a hard decision, but pick one and say, this child, you are responsible for this house. That means they're going to have to pay the taxes. They're going to have to do the maintenance. They're going to do, or they have the authority to sell. Okay, or if they have to talk to the mortgage company or so, they have the authority to do whatever is needed. Because if you have 2 kids or 5 kids or 50 kids onto this property, then it might as well be neglected. And then once, and from the tax perspective, once the tax goes delinquent, it is very hard to catch up. The fees and the penalties and the interest is just it just more than what the average inheritance can bear on that.
Thank you very much. I run into this issue quite a lot with clients, and it is difficult because you want to be fair to everybody in your family. But when you have multiple property owners, it leads to a dispute. If one person in the family decides that they want to sell, they can force a sale. And like Jamie said, if nobody's living in the property, people are not going to keep up the property taxes or cutting the lawn, and you'll end up losing the property.
So what if you have that one sibling that is the one that's taking care of the property, and then they decide to sell? That sometimes causes issues too, when they feel like they're
somebody else doesn't want to sell. Because then somebody else doesn't want to sell. They say, "Oh, grandmama gave it to me, left it to me. I have memories of playing there in the yard." They don't want to sell, and you can have the highest developer come and pay for it. And if the one person, right, Lisa, that says, "No, I'm not signing it," then it's not going to be signed.
There's a type of lawsuit called a partition. And if it's property that can't be divided up like a house, the judge will order the house to be sold and each person to get their share, depending.
Yeah.
Your 1/2 share, their 1/50th share, whatever.
Yeah, after you drag people through the mud and kicking and screaming and process serving 50 people.
Yes.
It's sad but true, and that's kind of the whole point of this kind of a presentation, about making sure that what you've worked for all these years, that your family, by the time it gets to the end, or it gets to the person that you want to pass it along to, that they can do this without any issues, and go through this process of actually grieving without having to fight over who's going to get what, and who's going to do this, and who's going to be in charge. And usually you'll find that somebody that's mad because mom left somebody else in charge, or why do you get to do this and why do you get to do that? And people don't really realize how much work is involved with being an executor of someone's estate, with having to go through to close out the bank accounts, and actually going through the probate process, and getting the letters testamentary, and contacting all these creditors, and filing the tax return for the estate, and applying for a tax ID number. There is a process. There are things that need to be done that an executor actually has to work for. So do not be in a rush to be an executor of someone's estate if you're not really ready to take the time to do all the work that it actually takes to be in charge of that person's estate. So it does completely fall on you.
It will be like you have 2 full-time jobs, because it is that much work.
And don't think that just because you're the trustee or you're executor that you call all the shots, because if you fall flat on something, the rest of the heirs can come back and sue you.
That's right.
Performance, right? For dereliction of duties, whatever they want to drum up, they can sue you.
Yep. And as much as people think, my kids, they all get along, I guarantee you, when people start going through the grieving process, somebody's not going to get along. Somebody's going to fight over something. It doesn't matter. We had Myra would tell you in plenty of our presentations that, her siblings were fighting over sheets.
Yeah.
Sheets.
It is amazing what people will fight over.
Someone put in the chat, Fort Bend County has a property alert notification. Will Harris County provide something, a similar type of notification? A property fraud alert. I guess when I was talking about the title, or how do you protect yourself against title.
We can check with the county clerk and find out. I can call Ms. Huspett's office and find out if they have that, but I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, Ms. Green says, that's what's going on with the family I'm helping. They had to sue 2 of 23 heirs. It's all over a year just to sell a property that was severely delinquent on property taxes. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So bottom line, please have the conversations with your family members, your heirs about what exactly it is that they want to have done with their property. It does not take a lot of work to create an estate plan, to write up a will. The first part of this presentation is the wills and estate planning and why you need it. That's done on the first Thursday of every month. This section, this particular presentation is kind of like the part 2 of what happens after the loved one passed away with or without a will. What is that process like to clear title when you've got multiple heirs and taxes that are owed and people that are still living in their property. So this is like the part 2. So I definitely encourage you guys to go back and watch the first part of the presentation if you had any questions in regards to the estate plan, the wills, creating a will, what does that look like, the other documents as it relates to guardianship, and powers of attorneys and medical declarations and so on and so forth. I will include a copy of that recording as well, along with this recording and the forms and documents for affidavit of heirship that Ms. Lisa had sent over to me. If you're in a situation where you've got the multiple heirs and need to get that done. I wanted to ask you about muniment of title. Ms. Lisa, that's
Sure.
probably a term that some people are going to come across too. Can you explain what a muniment of title is?
Absolutely. If the only thing you need to transfer from the deceased person is a house or a bank account, there's just that one thing, and there doesn't need to be any other type of estate administration, you can do what is called probating a will as muniment of title. And that is a simple process where the judge reads through the will and reads that this house goes to my niece, and the judge will sign an order saying that the house is transferred to the niece, and you file that order in the property records.
Okay, that kind of brought up my other question that I saw in the chat. I can't remember where it was. If it's been more than 4 years old and the will has not been probated, what's that process if it's older than 4 years?
You have to have good cause for not probating the will. Most recently, I came across, I was actually in court and somebody else had this issue going up where they didn't know that their parent had a will and they didn't find it until more than 4 years later. So they were probating it at that time.
That's the other thing. As executor, you should know where the original will is.
Yes. And when
should
you
know where it is.
take it, I don't know about, I haven't had this issue in Fort Bend County, but in Harris County, when you deliver the will, you have to take the original to the courthouse and they will lick their fingers and try to smear the ink. They really scrutinize it to make sure it's the original.
If nothing else, you can also file a copy with the county clerk's office.
You can file the original with the county clerk's office. It's called filing a will for safekeeping. It only costs $5. And I highly recommend it because that keeps the will safe.
And nobody has to worry about trying to keep up with it or where it's at and so on and so forth.
Or if there's a flood and you can't find it.
I heard a story that this family actually had a safe in their house and they had their wills in the safe and there was a flood and the safe got lost in the flood.
Oh.
Wow.
Hey,
wow.
Look, this is Houston, right? For the past 5 years, 7 years, how many floods, how many rainwater events have we had? You know, so
Well,
it's not unlikely.
Yeah, every county in Texas allows you to file your original will with the court, and that's the safest thing to do.
And that does not become public record for everybody to see or have access to.
It is not public record till your family files to probate the will.
And they can change it at any time.
You can remove it from the courthouse and change it.
Okay, all right. So with that being said, if there are any other questions that you all may have, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Our contact information will be on the email that I send out along again with all of the resources that were discussed here today, and a copy of the recording from the previous workshop about wills and advanced planning and why you need it. That will be included as well. So I want to thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate you coming back and continuing to support a month of service. Thanks to all of our partners that presented here today, Miss Jamie, Miss Ashley, thank you very much for your first time presenting with us. Ms. Maple's trying to pass the baton. I see her, we see her trying to get out of her original duties, but that's okay. That's okay.
I'm not.
That's all right. Thank you, Ms. Vicky, for monitoring the chat. And I believe you guys had Mr. Chauncey Majors in here monitoring the chat as well. And Ms. Lisa, definitely thank you guys for, again, continuing to partner with us. And on behalf of Myra with the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, we want to thank you guys for coming back and joining us, and also for your continued support and partnership of a month of service. So if there are not any other questions or anything, we will conclude and give you guys the remainder of your afternoon back. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and continue to take care of yourselves and stay safe. Oh.
Thank you so much, everybody.
I'm sorry, there was one quick question. How can I learn more about disputing taxes?
Oh, should I pitch that? Should I pitch that as a perpetual protester?
Absolutely.
We have workshops.
Okay, so
Actually,
for the audience that asked that, please tune in to a month of service. We have workshops that we pair up with the tax office and the Harris Central Appraisal District, that the appraisal district actually walks you through the process and gives you an in-depth look of what to prepare, you know, how to structure your presentations and what to include in your presentation. Very, very detailed, very, very helpful. So Nia would have, you know, the calendar, the invitations that we sent out. So sign up with us. You know, we're going to get you more than prepared for your property tax protest. But I'll say this as a perpetual protester: always protest. Even if you think your value is the same and your neighbor goes up like crazy, I don't care, protest. Because my question to you is, what do you have to lose but some tax dollars that you don't have to pay?
That part. The next property tax workshop will be on Wednesday, April the 26th at 1 p.m. The same website at nrcdc.org where you went to register for this one. Just look for the April 26th date and you'll see the registration link there. So definitely want to come back and join us for that if that's what you're interested in. So, you know, the protest deadlines are coming up May 15th?
May 15th or
May 15th.
30 days after you've received your notice.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. We hope you all have
Thank you, everybody.
remainder of your day. All right. Take
Thank
care.
you. Take care, everybody.
Wow.
See you.